This video was made thanks to Clip Studio Paint. When Clip Studio staff reached out to me about making a little video about my drawing process, I got super excited. I haven't had much time to draw lately as I just became a mom and I'm still learning how to live this new life where I'm always tired, never alone, and where I sacrificed my studio room for a little more urgent purpose. To make a drawing, you need time, drawing space, something to draw on, and Clip Studio Paint. And I was missing the first two. Of course I responded, count me in, and decided to just figure it out. Clip Studio Paint isn't just for computers, but also can be used on tablets and smartphones, iOS or Android. So I packed my iPad and went to look for inspiration. Clip Studio was with me on the bus stop, on the bus, in the park, literally in my hand all the time. The idea for an illustration started forming in my head as soon as I left home, so I'm glad I had the tablet with me and could sketch right away. A lot of drawings happen in my head and stay there forever, but luckily this one was safe. I had this idea of an ethereal character that is created from water. I wanted to draw something magical and pretty. Can you see how much drawing space I have on my screen? This is simple mode. You can easily switch between this one and the standard interface when you click on the icon and select Switch to Simple Mode. Or tap on 3 dots and go back to Studio Mode. Just remember to import all the brushes you'll be using as Simple Mode is, well, simplified. Talking about brushes, what I love about Clip Studio is their never-ending library of resources. The Assets Community Store can serve you with awesome brushes that imitate paints and pencils, but also flowers, leaves, laces, and other decorations. My recommendation is a Sucreme brush that I used in every single illustration I made since I downloaded it. The brushes are silky smooth and very sensitive. Painting can't get any more pleasant. You can adjust settings of any brush, including custom ones, and even create your own. Maybe you can relate to this one. When drawing, I tend to get two extremes and nothing in between. I either really struggle with lack of focus and can't sit still for more than 10 minutes at a time, or I hyper-focus so intensely I don't even blink for 10 hours. In the park I was all scatterbrained. Falling leaves, butterflies, birds, grass growing, I even found a mushroom. So I went back home and I started over. This happens to me more often than I would like, but every next sketch takes less time and gives me an invaluable experience, so it's not a bad thing in the end. Clip Studio Paint can record time lapses. It's honestly one of the coolest features. It shows every brushstroke and every single time I start over. Unlike in traditional art, in digital art you can work on different layers and move them around. You can't really paint under the line art on paper, but here I totally can. Here's a simplified layer structure I always follow. Light sketch. Darker sketch with thinner lines and little more details. Quick splash of color on the character. Then to turn sketch into an illustration, I start from building layers up again. White layer above everything on lower opacity. New layer above for line art. And let me stop here for a second. In Clip Studio Paint, you can alternate using raster layers and vector layers as you please. For line art, I tend to use vector layers, and let me show you why. Let's say I want to use only a part of my illustration or print the whole thing bigger than what I planned initially. Here is what happens when I expand a raster and a vector layer a few times. I hope you can see the difference. Vector layers are looseless, which means you can make them bigger infinitely. They will never lose quality and sharpness of the line. Clip Studio Paint is also equipped with tools to edit vector layers. You can make those lines narrower, thicker, shorter, cut them. You never have to use those tools, but it's way different than drawing with raster layers and just brush strokes. But don't worry if you always use raster layers. Just make sure your canvas is at least 2000 pixels on the shorter side and at least 300 dpi in resolution. Here are my settings. I find great satisfaction in the meticulous process of drawing line art. Here is where my hyperfocus can really kick in and I can spend countless hours endlessly redrawing the same line over and over and over. The magic happens when I'm done. I think Clip Studio Paint has the absolutely best fill tool I've ever seen. It feels like it always understands my drawing. In one click, I can fill large areas with a chosen color, even on a separate layer. After I color the background, I can make a selection, invert it, and color the character. So fast! In half a second, I made all the color selections I needed for painting. There are a lot of options to make it as smooth and easy as possible. Now that I committed to one design and hopefully don't have to start over anymore, everything is going to be much more straightforward. To make painting easy, I start by adding only 2 colors to each area, a lighter and a darker shade, and I do so by using a big brush in order not to get lost in details too early. After this, a real test of patience begins. I zoom in, sharpen my favorite pencil, and render away. It would help to have a little preview of the whole canvas somewhere on the screen, but my tablet screen is rather small, so I zoom out from time to time to check if I'm still on track. I choose most of the colors by moving sliders on my color wheel, but what comes super handy is having a color history panel open. It can go really far back. What helps a lot in this part of the drawing is having a keyboard, because on touchscreens it takes a little long to pick a color from canvas. I have to long press or change the tool, but on keyboard I can simply press Alt or Option key and it changes my brush to an eyedropper real quick. Another keyboard shortcuts I use very often are Ctrl-Z or Command-Z to undo my last action and Spacebar to change the tool into a hand that can move the canvas around. The right side of my keyboard is hidden, so I choose brush size on screen, but I could also do it with those 2 bracket keys. E is for eraser, but I don't actually use it, as in Clip Studio Paint I can paint with a transparent brush in order to erase anything, and it retains the same properties of the brush I just used. The eyes. They say the eyes are the mirror of the soul, so I like to spend a lot of time here. Sometimes I even spend a little too much, and then they end up not really fitting the illustration and need to be done again. We'll see. I know I just spent like a million years trying to make my line art clean and perfect, but when rendering, the work I have already done to get here doesn't really matter. What does is to make my illustration look good at the end. And I thought that overpainting some parts of the line art to add more texture to it would make it look better. So, hey, I spent another million years drawing almost all of it again. I think it was worth it. Now I'm not sure if I'm moving here to the last stage of the drawing or not yet. The line here is a little blurry. Look, despite spending so much time on this illustration already, it feels kinda flat. To bring depth into the illustration, I thought of painting a splash of water here in the foreground. I completely omit details and line art here and blur the layer to create depth. I think it looks spectacular. It's such a simple feature with such a big impact. To finish off this portrait, I added more blurred layers, some glow, particles, and layers to adjust color. Here's something not commonly known about Clip Studio Paint. You can apply effects in 2 areas. Through Edit, Tonal Correction, to add it to a specific layer, or through Layer, New Correction Layer, to create an editable layer that applies effect to everything below. And here's where it all ends. Was my process similar to the way you draw? Do you make sketches everywhere you go, or only when you're in the comfort of your drawing space? Most importantly, have you used Clip Studio Paint yet? If not, make sure to start your free trial today. Happy drawing! Until next time!